Welcome to the Kingdom Podcast, featuring Commissioner Christine King, where all voices are heard.
Welcome to another episode of the Kingdom Podcast, where all voices are heard. I am your host, Chairwoman Christine King of the City of Miami Commission and Commissioner for District 5. We are here today with Sandy Moise, my neighbor, to talk about all things the environment, particularly now that the City of Miami is undergoing a revision to its tree ordinance, and you are one of my neighbors that I look to for guidance, because the environment, I'm certainly not an expert in the environment, but I'm a champion for our environment. And between you and some of my other neighbors are born ideas that I share with city administration, which is how we came to have this tree ordinance revision because of community outcry, and we put a halt to what was happening. We, when I say we, I mean my colleagues, the commissioners have all agreed to put a halt, and now we have a process we believe that will be fair and yield an even better tree ordinance for our community. How do you feel about what we're doing so far?
Well, first, I have to thank you for championing the trees from the beginning. You didn't vocalize right away, but we could tell that you supported the trees and that we really felt strongly that we had a hero in you to protect our trees. So we appreciate that.
You know, it was the strangest thing, because when I got into office, one of the first things I did was enact a tree canopy program for Liberty City and District 5, because I find that in underserved neighborhoods, trees were not a huge consideration. Like in Coconut Grove, you hear people saying we have 200, 300-year-old oak trees. We don't have that in Liberty City. So when the dust-up came about the tree ordinance, I was quiet about it, because I was like, that's not my testimony. Mm-hmm. I'm planting trees. Mm-hmm. I'm not trying to get rid of trees. But then as the issue grew and snowballed, I had to say, hey, listen, I know I'm interested in planting trees. I'm not interested in taking away trees. I know the value of having tree canopy. I know the value of it alleviating heat from this concrete jungle that we live in. And then once I got involved, I was the champion to have a community committee for each of the commissioners to appoint 2 persons to sit on this tree ordinance revision, so that you will have input, and also that we can bring it back to the community. Because I think I'm known for community meetings.
Absolutely.
I have a lot of community, because I want to hear from my neighbors, and I can only advocate if I'm listening to everyone. I don't always get it right. We can't always, I'm not perfect. But in this instance, much Biscayne Bay advocacy, the Pelican Harbor, our trees, those are the things that, I can wrap my hands around and hug. Someone said I'm a tree hugger. I'm wearing my tree t-shirt that you guys gave me, which I love. So how do you feel about the direction that we're going in with respect to revising and improving?
We're cautiously optimistic, because we also feel that we need revision, but I think some of the commissioners may not have the same revisions in mind, whereas we feel there needs to be revisions to strengthen even more our code, and maybe include some things such as checking trees during nesting season or not trimming during nesting season, because we've seen many cases where birds' nests. I've seen 3 woodpecker nests where the tree has been cut down, and then you end up seeing the dead babies on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
So things like that could be added to the code. There are other changes that could...
But that's very smart, because the average person doesn't know when it's nesting season.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know when it's nesting season. But I think if the community was educated, nobody would say, I'm still going to cut my tree down during nesting season. I don't care if a bird falls out of the tree and dies. Nobody's going to say that.
Absolutely, they won't. And people don't want to do harm. So,
Right.
So, like I said, we're cautiously optimistic. We hope it can lead in the right direction. There are some really interesting plans that have come forward. Aaron DeMaio, who is the chair of the Climate Resilience Committee, had put forth a plan when the first ordinance came through, and it was supposed to go on the commission agenda, and then it was pulled, but it's called Flora. And essentially, it would allow developers to go up a little bit higher, have more square footage at the top, if they retained the more ground space at the bottom. That could be a perfect win-win. So we keep our green space, we keep our trees, and the developers still get their
the
buildable
density.
area. Yes.
Yes, they get the density.
It's all about the square foot.
Right, and that's a huge battle, right? The environment versus the developers. And I think that sometimes the developers get a bad, at least the ones that I deal with, because
Yes.
I do require trees, I do require green space, I do require them to have an environmental footprint. And some of the projects that I've been involved with are just that. Even having green space in the building, right? Like on the
deck, on the
deck.
roof.
Yes, on the
on the
roof.
walls.
Yes, they are doing that. And I think if given the opportunity, they would want to contribute to have a marriage that is development and environmentally friendly. You know, I don't think one has to be without the other.
I completely agree with you. I think there can be a perfect blend. I'm not against development. I enjoy, appreciate, admire, love what's going on in Miami. But I think Miami's special and unique because we have such a unique ecosystem here compared to anywhere else in the United States. So it's about the balance of preserving and protecting our existing ecosystem that people come here to see. You know, they come here to see different types of trees, different types of animal life, wildlife that we have here that they don't see anywhere else. So how do we preserve and protect that? We have a serious problem with the heat. We rank 3rd in the nation for Urban Heat Island Index. Trees are the main tool or resource that we have to combat that.
Yes.
So, and then throughout the process, we were hearing, well, in my district, people don't like trees, or in my neighborhood, people don't like trees. And
I don't think they say that in District 5.
no, not in District 5.
District
Not in
5.
District 5, in a couple of other districts. And so we went to some of those districts, and we actually canvassed. We went door to door and spoke with people, and they all had a story about trees. Trees were extremely valuable in their lives. They all had a memory that was related to trees. And then there was a lot of misinformation. A lot of people don't understand that you can trim 25% of your tree canopy each year without a permit.
Oh, I didn't know that either.
Yeah, so it's not about, okay, you're going to get a fine. It's just you have to limit it to 25% so that we don't do harm to the tree or the tree doesn't die because too much canopy has been removed. So that's something that can be done every year, and people should be pruning a few branches or around their canopy of how they want to shape it.
Particularly during hurricane season.
Absolutely.
My mom prunes her mango tree, and that tree grows back. That tree was my haven as a child. Me and my brother, that was our tree house. We climbed that tree almost every day. We, I don't know if this is right, but it's absolutely true. We put a plank between 2 branches, and we used to sit in the tree.
Oh, that's fine.
We used to sit in the tree every day. We just climbed the tree, and we would sit in the tree. And we were cool. I don't remember a time when I was a child, and maybe because I was a child, but I don't remember a time where we had heat advisories. And now we have heat advisories. I was out in the sun for maybe 20 minutes, and it felt like the sun was burning a laser into my arm. My arm burned the entire day. After I was only in the sun like 20 minutes. my arm, I kept putting ice on my skin because there was that much, like it was a sunburn. It just didn't peel red. And I've had that 2 hours at the beach once. I got the worst sunburn I ever had. I couldn't put clothes on. 2 hours, just 2 hours.
Wow.
At the beach. And so now I'm super vigilant about that. I wear my hat. You see me walking around. I wear my hat when I go running, when I'm walking, and because we have to be intentional about creating spaces to alleviate this heat and protect our bay and protect our
health, our physical health,
yes.
Whether it's the sun and getting a sunburn or having a heat stroke or having a heart attack. But I notice even myself in these days where we have the high heat advisory, because with my work, sometimes I have to walk outside or walk to the next building, the fatigue that the heat brings on. So it
Yes.
impacts not only like construction workers and landscapers and gardeners and people who we know typically work outdoors, and this is really intense and severe for them and their health, but for us who, we're outside a little bit, that heat is very draining, and it impacts our productivity in the workforce.
It does. And I went out this morning. It was sweltering. I went out 7 o'clock maybe, sweltering already. One of the initiatives that I have with developers is to offer, I partnered with a young lady that came to see me Constituent Tuesday. And for those of you who don't know, I have Constituent Tuesday. It's the first Tuesday of every month. You can come and see me. You don't need an appointment. You just come. I make myself available all day. This young lady came in, very smart, and talked about safety for construction workers, breaks, and I cannot make that a mandatory rule as a condition for getting, say, a permit with the city of Miami. The state said we can't do
Right.
that. But I do ask them as a community benefit to have cooling stations. I can't force them to do it, but I have asked. And a lot of them have been responsive because it's hot outside. And can you imagine having to work outside all day? It's hot. Even in December, here, it's hot. I wish we could legislate that more to because only they volunteer to do it. But it's something like you can have heat stroke, all of the things that you mentioned. But I know some of them are doing it where they have cooling stations. And we in the city of Miami have cooling stations now while we are upping our tree canopy and doing what we can. But cooling stations are necessary now.
Oh, absolutely. It's hot out there.
Like Hades. Like Hades. What else other nuggets can you give us about the environment? Because I know it's not just about trees. It's about our bay. It's about the wildlife. It's even when I'm out on my walks, I'll stop and take pictures of the flowers because sometimes I'm just struck by the beauty of the flower. And while I'm out walking and running, I try to be present to see, like I hear woodpeckers pecking. I love that, to be able to maintain our ecosystem. Wait, you didn't explain what you do for a living.
Oh, for a living,
and how you're so knowledgeable about all of this.
Well, actually, for a living, I'm an assistant principal at a school.
Oh.
And in my part-time volunteer realm, I'm the director of policy for Urban Paradise Guild.
There you go. That's what I was trying to get.
And at the beginning, you said you're not an expert, but I'm not an expert either. But I've learned so much just through the process. And even in the last 8 months, when we were advocating to oppose the proposed tree ordinance changes, I learned a lot. Even I thought I knew a lot, but then when I started listening to other people, I had other. I was introduced to other benefits of trees, and so I learned a lot, but I still have a lot more to learn, and every day I'm learning more. But I first started to learn more about like native plants and landscaping, and because I grew up in Ohio. We grew up in the rural area. We had a woods behind us. We had an orchard. So we always had trees. We built a tree house. We climbed the trees. We played in the trees. Some of them had vines, and we would swing on them. You know, it was a magical experience. It was simple, but it was magical. So we just always had trees around us. So I didn't always appreciate and value because they were just there. And we were in a rural area, so if you needed to cut down a tree, you cut down a tree, and there were just hundreds around, but typically you'd go out into the woods and you would find the tree that's dead or almost dead, and you cut it and you chop your wood and you have your wood for your firewood. So that was my relationship with trees. After college, I went to the Caribbean. I was a Peace Corps volunteer in Dominica, and I fell in love with tropical plants. I always loved flowers because my mother always had a flower garden that she would plant in the summer. Some of it would regrow. They were perennials, so they would come back in the spring. So I always loved flowers, but I went to the Caribbean, and it was like, wow, this is unique. This is different. I love these. And when I moved then to Florida, I wanted to replicate. But I had no idea that it would require much more watering, so my water bills were always high. They were always dying because I couldn't water enough, and I had no butterflies or birds. And finally somebody said, well, you know, if you want butterflies or birds, you need to plant the foods that will provide their food source and their nectar source, and what you have is not, it's beautiful, but it's not going to attract. So slowly over time, over years, as my plants would die, I would replace them with natives or Florida-friendly. Something that...
like xeriscape?
Yeah, like xeriscaping. Requires minimal watering, but then I always made sure that my xeriscaping had pollen or some sort of nectar source or food source or a leaf that one of the caterpillars like to eat, so that it also contributed to the wildlife, or produced a seed or a berry.
That's smart. But the average person doesn't know that. And I go back to, because this really has blown my mind, not trimming your tree during nesting. Never would that have occurred to me. Like, it's just a knowledge that I didn't have. And now that I do, I will be sensitive to that.
Right. You know? Or if you're going to trim, to check the branches first before you trim, so that you're not cutting down a branch. I actually had a landscaper who services homes on my street, and he was in tears, and he's like, you know, yesterday morning we trimmed, it was a palm tree, and he said there was a parrot, and there were 7 babies, and he's like, they all died, and he felt so bad, but it didn't occur to him. But going forward, he became much more knowledgeable, and then was more proactive in checking for nests before cutting. And like you said, if you don't know, then you make the mistake and you feel bad, but once you know, it changes habits.
Right, it changes, it does, and it makes a difference once you know. That's very smart.
And with trees, the other thing that I've learned is when you talk about the trees, or you talk about the bay, or you talk about the ecosystem and wildlife, everything is connected. There's nothing that's standalone or separate. So with the bay, when we have the cooling from the trees, especially near the water, when you have the tree canopy and the transpiration with the leaves and cooling the air when it releases some liquid back into the air, we're having lower temperatures near the bay, so that can help a little bit. Everything helps a little bit. The roots will absorb storm water, so it doesn't flush out all at once, but it also filters the pollutants and toxins, so that doesn't carry out into the bay either. So everything is connected.
It is. You know what drives me crazy? When I see in the bay grass clippings. That drives me I look to see, I try to figure out where that is coming from, because where my condo is, someone upstream from me is cutting their grass, and it's coming this way, and I can't figure out who it is, and that's harmful. That's harmful. It's illegal too, right?
Yes, it's illegal.
You can't cut your grass and let it float out into the bay. And it's a lot. It happens like once a month. I see it, and I can't figure out where it's coming from.
I saw the 59th Street seawall, when they cut the bushes, the shrubs, it all went into the bay. So, and that's illegal too. It breaks down, and then it puts unnecessary nutrients, and then we end up having an algal bloom, and the fish die. You remember the fish kill of 2020, August 2020.
I had never seen anything like that. I'd never seen anything like that. First, the smell.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, what is that? And then I saw, and it was horrendous. It was just horrendous.
It was really traumatic. I looked at Morningside Park, at the 59th Street seawall, went to Legion Park, went to Albert Pallet Park.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't just, piles and piles of dead fish. And then you would see the fish that were struggling to breathe. That was horrible.
It was bad.
And then one morning there was maybe 10 stingrays that were trying to get air. So I made a call, and a truck was sent out to aerate the water a bit just by pouring. It was the fire truck with the hose, the fire boat with the hose, so it could add some oxygen to the water. But
I'm always looking at the bay. I watch the bay like it's television. Mm-hmm. It's strange, but I do. I don't watch a lot of TV, but I look at the bay. Like I reported a boat just the other day. It's just I noticed it the day before, and then the next day I saw it again. So I called and I reported. And I was the one that reported when we had that bad weather and that tour group, and they were just floundering out there with lightning and thundering. And I called the police and said, hey, these people are going to die.
Yeah, you saved lives that day. I remember that day clearly.
These folks, and I'm like, panicked. I kept calling. How long is it going to take you to come? How long is it going to take you to come? But, that our tree canopy plants, keeping our roads clean, even the keep regular maintenance on our sewers, our drains, to keep them clean, all contributes to having us have a healthy environment. And I watch what other cities are doing. I watch these documentaries, other cities that were concrete jungles, and how they're transforming that concrete, creating green spaces. And even I'd like to see for us to have a more cycling friendly, walk friendly city. Because I think it's in Ohio, I watched somewhere, it's a bicycling city, and the majority of folks ride their bikes everywhere, and how much healthier they are. I also watch the blue zones, right? And the folks that live in the blue zones, because I want to be one of those that live to be 100, and how they do it. So that's where I get my love of the environment. And it's because of me that you see MLK Boulevard with the pretty plants. Yes. Because I'm like, we should have that.
Absolutely. Everywhere deserves to have green canopy, to have green infrastructure, to have flowers, to have, pollinating plants, to have birds chirping. Every single neighborhood deserves that. We should have
butterfly gardens everywhere.
Everywhere. And it's funny because people laugh at me because I'm a proponent of butterfly gardens. They don't understand that butterflies are pollinators. We're down 22% of our pollinators, of our butterflies.
Really?
22% decline. That's very serious.
It is, because it seems like butterflies were always around when we were kids. Like, there was a butterfly everywhere. Everywhere. But you hardly see a butterfly now. Between
the lack of plants and the pesticides. So pesticides are another problem. And I don't understand. Insects are so important. Insects are part of the food chain. If we get rid of all of the little insects or the little worms, or what happens? We have no food source for the next level up. Our birds have nothing to eat. So I'm not saying ban pesticide, but use it smartly.
Well, we should be considering using pesticides smartly anyway, non-toxic pesticides, because so many of us have furry friends. Right?
Yes.
I don't like to walk Cinnamon outside because I'm afraid that she will ingest something that will make her sick.
Or just stepping on the grass that has pesticides on it. You don't need to do your entire lawn. So, for example, I understand if people don't like cockroaches, the big palmetto bugs. I don't either. But you can spot treat inside your home with a little like gel that they have in places that are safe, that are away from your pets. That will do the trick. You don't need to spray your entire yard to eliminate a few cockroaches from entering into your home. So it has to be smart that way. The same thing with weed killers. You don't have to spray everywhere. You can. The best method is the mechanical method of pulling weeds, but in cases where you can't reach them, then just put a tiny bit of spray on that weed and it will kill the whole weed.
Plus, pulling weeds has many benefits because now you're squatting, you're moving muscles. It's also healthy for you.
And it's mentally therapeutic. I've been pulling weeds in my yard this week. I have peanut grass, a perennial peanut, which is not native, but I love it. And then I have some native ground covers growing in with it, but then I have little grasses that are starting to take over. So every day when I get home from work, I
go out there
and pull a few weeds. It clears the mind.
Meditation. It's a meditative thing to. My mom does it, and we grew up, she always had rose bushes. She's wonderful with gardenia bushes. I tried to have one in my house now. It didn't work. And I gave it to her, and it's just thriving. She grows her own peppers. She makes her own pepper sauce, her rose bushes, and then she has perennials. But she's always outside. My mom's 83. She's always outside in the yard doing something in the yard with her plants and her flowers. She's always doing that. And she's always done that. You know, she loves that. And I guess Caribbean people do that. They have gardens. They all have gardens. And for me, it's a garden inside of my house because I don't do well with plants on the balcony just yet. I'm trying.
Well, it's going to be finding the right plant because you'll get the saltwater air.
Exactly. And that saltwater air is unforgiving. It eats everything. It eats everything.
So speaking of the bay, one day I'm going to have you come out on a kayak with me to Mangrove Island to our rookery, our nesting colony.
I love that.
That we have in the city of Miami.
House.
Well, being right up, I go once a month to do the survey, so I'm able to go a little bit closer and just stay quiet. But and we go at sunset because that's the time when the birds come home. The last survey, there were 9 tricolored herons, which are state threatened. The fish crows are probably my favorite, just because a lot of people don't appreciate them because there's so many, and when you have quantity, then people don't see the value. But they're just so loud, and they have such character. But usually 2,000 to 3,000 fly in.
Really?
And it's so spectacular. They'll fly in, they'll start swarming around. You hear the sound of their waves flapping. We had magnificent frigate birds, cattle egret, black-crowned night heron, green herons, great egrets,
I can't wait
cattle
to do
egrets.
That. I can't wait to do that.
It's so magical.
Let's do that soon. I can't wait to do that.
Well, I'm ready whenever you are, so just let me know. I have the place for us to launch.
Okay. We have come to the part in my podcast where I'm going to ask you a series of questions.
Okay.
It doesn't require any thought, just kind of quick.
Okay.
What's your favorite book, or what are you reading now?
Right now I'm reading a book called The Trees.
Really?
By Conrad Richter, I believe is his name. Conrad Richter. The Trees, and it's about the new settlements in Ohio years ago. That was the West, when the Northwest Ordinance was passed. And it's about the pioneers who went to Ohio and lived with the indigenous people and when they were getting along at that time.
Okay.
For the most part, early on. But they went and discovered these giant trees, these mammoth trees. It was all forested. So that's what I'm reading now. It's quite interesting.
Do you have a favorite song?
A favorite song? Oh my goodness. I have a favorite music type, which is reggae.
Really?
Yes, love reggae.
Well, I think all of us environmentalists should have this song in our playlist. I'm not sure the name of the song, but it goes, "They paved paradise and put up a parking lot."
Yeah, Jimmy Buffett, right?
Is that Jimmy Buffett? I love that song.
I do too.
I love it. It's actually, I knew it before, but it was in a movie with Hugh Grant and Sandra Bullock. and because she was an advocate for the community and not knocking down the community center, and she like tied herself to the street or something, laid down in the street, and they played one of that song in the movie. It's on the sound title. Okay.
So favorite song probably would be One in a Million by Larry Graham.
One in a Million?
Yes.
Okay. And if you could have dinner with anyone, living or dead, who would you like to have dinner with, break bread with?
Abigail Adams. And one of my favorite books is about her, Dearest Friend, about Abigail Adams.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Dearest Friend. Okay.
She, you know, back in
Write that down.
back in their day, they were so strong, and they really had to take care of the household, take care of the farm, take care of everything, because when their husbands would leave to travel days to get to where they served as representatives, they really handled the household. They handled everything. I mean, they just really were strong people, but she was so influential on policy through her husband.
Wow. I read every day. I just finished reading a book called Kindred by Octavia Butler. It was so good. It was so I can't live without reading. Like, I have to read every day, and I read all kind of stuff. But
Do you have the Libby app?
I do.
I do too.
Oh my gosh, I have the Kindle and I have the Libby app. I read A Fate Inked in Blood from the Libby app, and I was reading it in April, and the sequel was coming out in May. I set the notifications and everything, and I got the book came out in May, the day of, and I got it, and the sequel is A Curse Carved in Bone. It was a page turner, and I got the Libby app. You know, I don't have a space for books and books and books and as many books that I read. I don't have the space for it. But I read it on my Kindle, and I do it from the Libby app. And I also love the Libby app because you can read magazines. I read the magazines on my iPad, and the color is beautiful. Magazines are $20 today.
It's so expensive, and then you throw it away, or you make a collage, or you whatever. You pass it on to someone, but the Libby app is wonderful. You connect it to your public library card, and you have access to everything.
Absolutely. Now, I can't listen to a book. I have to read it. I don't know. My mind goes drifting, and the next thing I know, I don't know what they said. But I love the Libby app. And I love reading. I'm
reading the Seven Sisters series now, too. I'm reading like several books at once, and I always like pick up one or go into another one. I try not to do that because then I might not go back to it. But A Fate Inked in Blood and A Curse Carved in Bone, that's a good series. And Kindred was also page turner. Like, I was up till 2 a.m. one day. I was like, I gotta go to sleep. I'm gonna reach out to you for those titles because I'll forget by the time I leave here. Okay. But yeah, I love reading too.
Now, if you could give your younger self advice, what would you tell yourself?
My younger self, I think I would say not to be afraid to do what you want to do in life. I didn't start advocating for like the trees or for myself especially until I got older. You know, I always lived with this anxiety or this fear and I think I would tell my younger self to be bold, to be daring, to take more risks, to not live life like thinking about, well, what if, or...
Right.
So I think be bold.
That's good advice. Be bold. Stand in the sun. Stand in the sun. I love that. Well, thank you for being a guest on the Kingdom Podcast. It was such a joy to have you. And I tell you that your advice is invaluable to me. Like, I don't know if my neighbors really realize it, but I think that I get it right most of the time because I listen to you guys. So I'm really grateful for that.
Well, I can tell you as a constituent who's not in your district, but we're a street apart.
Right.
We all recognize that you listen to people, even for those of us who are not in your district, and you really contemplate and make decisions based on the information that you learn or that's shared with you. So we really appreciate your willingness to listen to people, willingness to seek out more information, and so we appreciate that.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. So that's a wrap, everyone. This is another Kingdom podcast in the can. Thank you for joining me, whether you are watching us or listening to us on our various podcast platforms.